Everyone.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, good afternoon, maybe for some. Welcome to our Immigration Spotlight. We're thrilled as the Latin American and Caribbean Committee to have you here today. We're going to get started. I'm Rosa Lizardi. I'm a member of the Latin American and Caribbean Committee, or LACC, as we call it. I'm hearing a little bit of back echo. So I'm wondering if someone might turn down their volume a little bit. So we are so glad to bring this to you today. We're going to be discussing a documentary, Harvest of Empire, which we have viewed in community on Wednesday. And maybe for those who weren't there on Wednesday, you've seen it. We'll also put in the chat the link if you want to see it and didn't get to see it. It is free on YouTube with some ads, commercials. But we're thrilled to also have a guest today. So the Harvest of Empire documentary, The Untold Stories of Latinos in the US, is based on a book, Harvest of Empire, by Juan Gonzalez, who's a journalist with Democracy Now! And it explores the connection between US intervention in Latin America and the Caribbean and the immigration crisis we face today. So this was one of the main reasons why we wanted to bring it to you today, because we in the LACC and the Immigration Spotlight have been looking at the root causes of migration. And so this program begins to discuss further that point. And so we're going to start with a kickoff discussion presentation, with our guest, Marta Benavides, who is a dear friend and mentor of mine. Marta is a theologian, educator, permaculturist, an artist, promoter, and a peace activist who lives and works in El Salvador and who worked directly with Monsignor Romero, who was mentioned in the film, recalling in his death and his killing. The film is very stark reality, and in some moments very difficult to watch. So we're glad to have Marta here. She can only be with us for about 10 minutes or so because of her commitments in the community. So without further delay, I want to have Marta open. Oh, there's a question. Yes, Lydia?
Um, I have to leave at 9:30, and so sorry about that, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay, Lydia, thank you. Thank you for being here today. So Marta, without further ado, please, if you can reflect. I know that you have seen this movie and we've had discussion groups with it way back, and you can bring your knowledge, firsthand knowledge about it. So Marta.
Buenos días. I cannot be in the video because then, it doesn't let me speak clearly with you because of the electricity here and the internet. They don't work the same as in other places, especially in the north and cities and things like that. But I am so glad to see many of you. Some of you I have met personally and have worked with in various other times. Rosa and I have worked together as friends, but especially, in the accompaniment of processes in the US and in many other aspects, that the UN carries for close to 40 years. One of the things that I'm very thankful for is that I have had the experience of knowing people with whom I have worked for years and years and years, and we struggle and discern together. And I push hard because, being from the global south, I am looking from the south up north. So we have a saying in the global south that many of us use, that we say that we all have a compass, and in the world there is a compass. And in the compass, usually the north is what gives us the direction. But in our case, we say that for the global south, the south is our compass, is our north, because it tells us where to see from. Because the global south, including those people of the global south or who live in conditions of the global south in countries such as the US and other northern nations, global north, uh, we know that we all have suffered all kinds of situations that force us to be enslaved to those situations, and having lived also slavery. Like, for example, in my case, I am the daughter of uh, and sister, a sister of four of us together. And, like, I'm the only one that looks like me, because my sisters look very Latin, and I wanted to look like them when I was little, but then I only got very burned in my nose trying to get darker because, the majority of us come with our indigenous roots. In reality, even though we might look white, we really are of our nations. I don't know anybody in my family that came from Spain, that directly that I can say, oh, they came from Spain or from any other European country. The reason I went to the US is because during the time that I was finishing high school, there was a process that the UN sponsored, which is very good. Good things happen in spite of things. And there was an agreement by all countries to make sure that the people learn to read and write. And that's a difficult thing, because you can learn to read and write and not to know what you're reading and writing. You know that. And that's how education has become. But some of us agreed to go to the communities and teach how to read and write. And we were mostly young people. And our parents allowed us to go because we wanted a different kind of situation than living in poverty and in hunger. I was very upset at the time because I had just learned that my country was part of the countries in the hunger belt. And I was very angry. And so, I wanted to make difference. And that's one of the reasons I got to study medicine. But then I understood that I didn't want to work on medicine, because what I wanted is for people not to be sick. And then in trying to understand how come people were sick, we found out that it has to be very much related to poverty. And how come we have such poverty? And my mom especially taught me that we were in a paradise. That it's not true that God kicked us out of paradise, that we were in real paradise. And she showed me, through looking at nature. Look at the mangoes, look how well they smell, look how delicious they are, look at the butterflies. She pointed everything, and she questions things, and she taught me how to question. So I had to come to understand how come we have poverty. And there was later on, and I understood that. And so I got out of studying medicine once I finished science, but I decided to work on health, instead of medicine. And that's what I do today. And that's one of the reasons that I work at the UN. I have to pay. Never the UN has paid for me to be there. Even when I was studying in the US, I would sneak out of school to go to be in the decolonization, commission. I worked very hard in Mexico, and the Latin countries were very key about having, a strong commission on decolonization, because of all the countries that we knew were still under a lot of situations related to colonialism in Asia, and especially in Africa. In Africa is many countries that just got to have what is called official sovereignty and independence in the middle of the last century, imagine. And then, like for us, it's very clear that when we talk about the SDGs and the MDGs and all that, that they never took into account that it was us that allowed, the countries that are now supposed to be developed countries, and we are the underdeveloped or the ones that are in process of development, that subsidize the quality of life that is not real quality, it's a standard of life, but the quality of life, question marks, in countries such as the ones where you are. And when all these decisions, and even right now under the SDGs and the new development agendas, even though the frames are very good and help to see how to stop the poverty, the impoverishment, because it's different to be poor than to be impoverished. And we see that we are impoverished. We are made to live like that. Indigenous people were the first ones to suffer this kind of situation. And when we were discussing all these processes at the UN, we never really put down that it is the historical debt of colonialism that has to be addressed. And so it became a process of enrichment of very few and impoverishment of the most. And then, they even started with these ideas of banana republics. And I was saying, but we don't even grow bananas. How come we are banana republics, And we are forced to grow coffee and sugarcane that is destroying the whole world because, sugar is not good for health. And when we oppose these things, we are oppressed. And this is what Monsignor Romero was talking about, that we have to learn to study and to see the real signs of the times. COVID has come to show, dramatize, underline, and everything is now in the open. But then, while all this COVID is happening, what was the whole thing? In my country, in El Salvador, and I'm taking a risk saying it here, and the reason I have to leave, so because we are having elections in next Sunday, this coming Sunday, and the executive wants to take over all the powers of the state. And those of us who oppose it, because it's not good for our people to be, taken for a ride in a sense. But this present administration has indebted us, taking all kinds of loans because of the pandemic. We have created pandemonium all over the world. Many countries have become very indebted to the point in my country, 94% we are indebted. And then, like the executive is saying, I want to have the majority in the legislature, in the Congress, so that they can give me what I want and go ahead and, go ahead and accept the proposal, the money that I have presented as a for the whole year, because I'm going to use that money for the first four months, all of it, and then we are going to have the majority accepting all that we tell them, and they are going to get us to continue having more debts, and we are opposing this, and we are in big danger. And you know what? We need people to really know that there is nobody, COVID says, that is going to be well if all of us are not well. But for all of us to be well, we have to understand what is wellness. And that's why I am working with no money at all, but understanding that anyway, we have to solve our problems on a process of health, food, well-being of peoples and nature. Like that, in the whole understanding. And this is what we need of the people of the US. But people were not paying attention to what was being done to Mexico, for example, on the as soon as the new administration at the time, the present administration was only 2 weeks into the programs, into having taken responsibility, and they were forced to do what the administration of government in that country did. It said, if you don't do what we want, you are going to be charged 5% for all your exports to the US per week, 5%. And every week that goes by that you don't do what we tell you, we are going to go 5% more, up to 25%. So that new government had to make numbers. And then everybody's criticizing them that they, they did what the administration of government in the US said. And It was all against the immigration. It was all against forcing the food, secure countries. My country was forced to accept that anybody that came through here on the way to the US was going to stay in my country. We have to take care of them when we cannot even take care of our people because of all these measures of centuries. You know, this is the harvest. We are collecting what we have planted for years. That has been normal, you know, and so we had to take care of the people when that came from anywhere in the world that were going through our country. Honduras had to do the same thing. Guatemala had to do the same thing, so that they would even get to the southern border of Mexico, and they had to repress us. And then people see all this in the news, and they don't see that this is directly related to policies, the domestic policies of wellness, of living well and standard and quality of life in the northern countries is related to what we have to do all of the world. And so right now we have that in the world there are studies, and you can go and check them, that say that it just, I'm going to round the numbers, you know, but it's about, like, say, if we are 7 billion 800,000 people in the world, in the planet, close to 5 billion on what that other 2% on. And that 2% is not even, you know, all of the people. It's the billionaires and the trillionaires. And what happened during the pandemic, that they were very busy working to go to Mars, billions of money, and they are in Mars. Oh yeah, what a great thing. And also, instead of now having 2 trillionaires, there are 3 billionaires, all of the US. So this is not about feeling guilty. This is about personhood. Personhood is per the Son. We are calling ourselves children of God, children of the creation. And that's what we have to face up to. And that's what's going to tell us how to go. And so just recently, about 2 weeks ago, and I bet you, examine yourselves and see how much, you know, you're paying attention to this. In the Bible says, you are in this world, but you are not of this world. Because we shouldn't be shaped by this world, but we have to pay attention and see what is it that is being demanded of us. And we pay big prices in our countries for paying attention, big prices, because they repress us, they oppress us, and then we say, people who are vulnerable. People and nature is not vulnerable. We are vulnerated first so that we can become vulnerable. And pay attention to this. And this happened to women, to children. Imagine we even have something that we understand that is okay. Save the children. What had the little kids have done? The ones that haven't been born to be, to need to be saved. No, we have created those conditions. And then we live well from all these NGOs that we create to help us. Don't help us. We don't need any help. We need people to be our brothers and sisters. And people in the North are not being our brothers and sisters. And so migrations, the last thing I'm going to say, because I got to run far, I did it because I love you. And I have contacted the people. I'm going to be late. Please be patient with me. And, please accept that I'm going to be late, I said, because I don't even have a car on purpose. I go in public transportation. And with this pandemic, people are buying cars so they don't have to be with the populace, and I thought, no, I have to take care, do my best as I have to show the people how to be too. But, the government of Mexico is now part of the Security Council. And those of us who work the UN and who are concerned about the status of the world and what's happening, we should pay attention to what is happening at that Security Council and what has to be done with them. But in there, Mexico said, we are denouncing that in these few weeks, what we have seen is nations of the North making sure that they have millions of billions of vaccines and nothing for the rest of the world. And what did we do? I'm one of the few that tweets about it. And because of that, our government is looking at people like me and other partners. And we don't know what's going to happen on Sunday, but they are telling that this is going to be militarized and they know where we live. But we decided we're going to have to do what we have to do. That's the reason that I still decided to do this, that Rosa asked me to do. And it's not that I don't want to do it, it's just that I don't have enough time to do all the work that needs to be done. And so
Thank you, Martha.
I asked you to check, and I'm going to say goodbye now and run.
Thank you. I'm
Gracias.
sorry we don't have time for questions for you, Martha, but please keep us informed about the election and please take care of yourself.
Check my
Thank-
tweets. You'll see a lot of this stuff there because
All right,
I
I
have
will-
issues alerts on the tweets.
I
Love
will
you.
put your tweet in the chat. Thank you so much. Okay,
Adios.
love
Gracias.
you too. We heard so much from Martha relating to what we saw in the film and relating to bringing it current to what's happening now in terms of what's the US policy most recently has been towards the countries of the South, those who would hold asylum seekers, Mexico, big one of those. Martha mentioned El Salvador too, forcing them to follow their policies. So at this point, you know, we've had a previous discussion on Wednesday, a brief one where there were so many great comments. I want to open the floor for discussion, reflections. What moved you after seeing the documentary? I open the floor if anyone wants to come in. And just to say, in the announcement we sent out about this, Maureen had given us this line: the consequences of US imperialism is our harvest of empire. So I want to give credit to Maureen for that wise observation. So Mary Jean, yes.
Well, I guess I'm struck by Marta, you know, how angry she is and how she said, we don't need help. We want brothers and sisters. I mean, that hit me. And it just is something to see. Here is this woman in El Salvador struggling, and you know, most of the people like that we saw on Harvest of the Empire, they're not safe, you know, and here she is working like she is. I guess that's what I'm struck by her right now doing this work. That's my thought at this minute. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, she is taking a risk. And actually, we just need to make sure that I don't know if she heard, Sally, that this was being recorded, but we might hold the recording just
And
until
ask her.
we know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why.
And as she tells me, just taking public transport is putting your life on the line. Holding a phone in front of you is putting your life on the line because those things are snatched and people are killed for that. Sally?
Rosa, please tell Marta that if she wishes, I can edit out her
Okay.
opening remarks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else? Lydia, before you leave us, you want to share anything? And if you could unmute yourself.
I'm just very aware of the suffering in Latin American countries. And I read America Magazine, and hearing Marta this morning was very difficult because she really is in danger. one can feel it. And I just want equality in this world, you know, and I pray about it and I try to learn about it. And I thank you all. Sorry, I can't stay for the whole time.
Thank you. Sally, you unmuted again, or Mary Jean, or you were?
No, I do have a thought, maybe, from the video. I wrote down something that the narrator, Juan Gonzalez, said, because I felt kind of jarring hearing him say this, and I wanted to see what we all think about this statement. He said that he has great confidence that once Americans, quote, have accurate facts, they rarely allow injustices to stand. I wonder if we would agree, do we have that kind of confidence? I'm not sure I can say that I do, frankly. That once Americans have the accurate facts, they rarely allow injustices to stand.
And just to note that this documentary was made 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm. What do y'all think about that statement? Do you agree?
Well, this is Mary Ellen. I'm thinking, Sally, that's a good question, because maybe 9 years ago, it was more like that. But I think over the period of the last 4 years, at least, we have become so inundated with lies ourselves that we can't decipher what is true and what is not true. And I think people are in this cult kind of age right now, that they either go for the lies and believe anything that anybody of the cult nature says, or they really stop and figure it out. And I don't know if there's anybody left who's going to figure it out. However, I do know there are some people, and there's people like us, and there's people like Charles Eisenstein and Brian Massengale, and or whatever his name is. And I mean, there's others who are putting the truth out there, like Martha. So we can rely, I think, on those people and just have that hope that maybe this will, because I think it takes more than just knowledge up here in the head. It takes a change of heart. Yeah. And that's where we come in to pray for them, to send out the positive energy that hearts will be changed. And prayer does work, and we know it. So that's where my hope would be.
Alicia?
Unmute.
Oh, not, you haven't unmuted yet. One more try. There.
Okay. Listening to Sally, well, and Mary Ellen too, I think being aware of circumstances, and I keep thinking of George Floyd, that maybe people heard about racism and the blacks being mistreated, but not until most people saw that video with that knee in his neck did it arouse indication. And so I think we need to see something, I hope not as deadly as that, but something that shows the need of our neighbors to the south. And I do think there's a lot of prejudice against immigrants. And so, you know, our work is cut out, but and I think what also helps are hearing stories like Martha's.
Yeah. Maureen and Anna.
You know, I said something similar, maybe right before Sally, he said what, Juan Gonzalez said what you said. He said ignorance is the biggest threat. And then you mentioned lack of facts. And I think that we know this. And I think there's something about values that has to come first. And we've known about racism, like Mary Ellen said, intellectually, but there has to be something in your heart, I think Alicia said. And I don't think any facts is going to get rid of the racism because it comes out of fear. And fear that if I give up something, if I help somebody, then I am giving up something. And I can't afford to do that because there's such scarcity. So I think that that's the pervasive thing. And I think sometimes policy has to precede our heart knowledge. We change things, people with values change things. And then we see, oh, that change was good. I don't know. I'm having a real hard time with that right now, Sally's question.
Mhm. Anna?
So both Martha and the film made me think about the word sovereignty and how our country lives the big lie that we respect other countries' sovereignty. As somebody else mentioned, Martha's words about, we don't want your help. You know, we just want to live the way we want to live. And then all of the economic machinations that get looped in. We don't call El Salvador, you know, one of our countries. No way we can think of to get what we want from them. And that's, you know, I don't guess anybody who actually does imperialize a country or colonize a country would admit to that kind of motivation. But it just is so high. When I think of the, you know, the years since the 60s that we all lived through, having those things revealed to us, knowing what our country was doing. I think one of the best things that happened in our community was when Marion McAvoy sent however many of us to foreign countries to live for a year to know that experience, and then had them come back. The biggest education I've gotten has been from people who have lived in Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala. And just, you know, it's just heartbreaking to me what this country, and now I hear that Biden has bombed some buildings in Iraq. Do we think that's helping them? Really? It's just pitiful, pitiful.
Alicia, I think you.
Also, no minimum wage. They kicked it out of the bill last night. You know, for $15. How many Republicans are getting $15 an hour? How many? I mean, I think it's disgraceful. I remember the campaign for 501. Good God. And that was 501. And I remember my mom was working at this school then, how many years ago? And she, she didn't have Social Security. She didn't have anything. She couldn't wait for $5.01. Now that had to be how many years ago, for God's sake? 30 years ago.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Yes, Elisa.
I wanted to piggyback on Anna Coop comment about the Banana Republic, because Marta even mentioned that. And that goes back to many, many years when big corporations would go down and take over plantations and, ship the bananas and everything else back to the States and give those countries a pittance. And I think that still goes on in some places. And so that leads to that economic inequality that Anna spoke of too. And it's present here too in this country. I'm sorry that that $15 an hour went down, because if you can make a living out of $6.75, I don't know where you're living, but it's not here in this country. So I think that one needs to be pursued. But I mean, our focus is on what's happening, in some of these countries, and what our country has done with certain treaties that have been to the disadvantage of these countries.
And just on that point, Sharon, did you want to come in? You're unmuted. Oh, okay. Just on that point, that's okay. I was just checking with you. On that point of banana republics, we heard it a lot around the January 6th takeover uprising of the Capitol, that the US looked like a banana republic, which I always, every time I heard it, it was so offensive, because the US policy was what caused these industries to be in Central America and the Caribbean, which is why they were then called banana republics. And so that irony it just struck me when I heard that. Also, Martha also talked about the historical debt of colonialism related to this issue of companies establishing themselves and the US policy protecting their establishments in these countries. And that's something that in the work that I do at the UN continues to take place, and that we continue to monitor, especially now with the hiding of the gains and the taxes with these tax havens in some Caribbean islands and other places. So that's something that that continues, even though we heard about this in the documentary that happened in the 50s and 60s, and now it continues to do so. So if there are no more reflections or comments, I want to open the floor to Bob Key. Thank you for joining us to give us an update, a brief update on the border and detention centers in Arizona. And then I believe Mary Jean is going to give us an update on what's happening in around the Tijuana, San Isidro border. And then what we'll do is, as we want to do in every immigration spotlight, is give you information about taking an action. So we'll give you that information and just a couple of announcements. So if there's, you have a question, Sally?
I just wanted to say that I've got a couple of updates as well about some.
Okay, so we'll have time for that. We have about 10 minutes for these updates, and
Maureen probably does
from
also.
the border, and then the action and updates. Okay, So Bob, thank you for joining us.
No, always my pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for thanks to Marta. That was incredible. So yeah, I had about 5 years ago, I was able to spend a couple weeks in El Salvador, and it was one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had, speaking to people that work with Romero and Rotulio Grande. It's just wonderful work. But as far as the border, so there are still a lot of people crossing in the desert. We've had numerous encounters in the desert, at the border. So that's still going on. The Title 42 is still in existence, which allows the Border Patrol to drop off people in Mexico and send them back into the country, or it allows them to process them and send them to prisons. So that is still going on. I had a Zoom call with the Florence Project, with a group of lawyers that does pro bono work here in Arizona with the prisons. And the MPP is still in place in Nogales. The only place, they started out in San Diego, allowing people to apply for asylum, and they're moving to El Paso and then Matamoros. Nogales, no one knows what's going to happen there. The lawyers said, they don't have a clue. It's all up to the administration to see what happens there. And as far as the numbers of people that they're seeing in Nogales at the Comodoro, that number is increasing. Because what happens at the border, it's always so fluid, because it's very, very dangerous for people to have to stay in Mexico and wait at the border, because it's, the cartels are there, and it's extremely dangerous. So the Florence Project told me that they gave out a number that they said there were 68,000 people that were in MPP, but there are only 25,000 open cases. So that means that out of that 68,000, only 25,000 people are eligible for asylum. There are various reasons why the 43,000 aren't included. So, and as far as I know, we were at the border yesterday, and wall construction has stopped, and the road construction had stopped where we were. But I'm going again tomorrow to a different area to see what's happening there, because the last time I was there was still road construction going on. And I did send out a video to Sally and Mary Jean from Univision, and they used part of my video that I had taken when I was in Walker Canyon, and they did Jorge Ramos did a 4-minute segment on the border, which is great. So if that can be shared, that would be fantastic.
Oh, that's
so
great.
We'll see what happens tomorrow. So, it's just a matter of talking about facts. It's just a matter of, it's hard when you're getting resistance, but you just got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and really getting the truth out there and providing the truth to people. So
thank you.
That's where things stand right now. Yeah.
Bob, just
Yeah.
for everyone else, tell them what you do when you walk and who goes with you,
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, right now we're still utilizing the protocol for COVID-19. So there are only 2 of us to a vehicle, and there were only 2 of us yesterday. But we walked for miles on this road to see what the construction was like. And I'll send out photos so that can be shared, and to see this horrific destruction of what has occurred. It breaks your heart when you're standing there and you see this scar that extends for miles and miles and miles. So we were able to leave food and water at the border, where we had encountered the migrants the last time. We had encountered a group of 5 gentlemen, the guide and he said, we've got a group of people, women and children, waiting to cross as well. So we gave them gallons of food and water, and we couldn't get the water through the slats. So he said, "We've got this." He said, so he said he took his bottle and we dumped all the gallons into his bottle, and so as the gallons got emptied, we passed them through the slat, would fill them up. It was so creative, and we had this exchange. It was yeah, it was and the guys were so grateful. I mean, they just gave us blessings, and yeah, so it was very powerful. But one last thing is we're attempting to open up medical care at the Comodoro. We're working to do in-person and telemed. So we're going to have a Zoom call hopefully later today or soon. So as that happens, I'll keep you posted. So I hope that occurs, and I'm hoping to get down to the Comodoro soon.
Have you gotten your second shot yet, Bob?
Tuesday, I get my second
Tuesday. And then you need 2 weeks,
2
right?
weeks, and then after that, I'm really wanting to get down there. Yeah.
90%. Well, thank you so much, Bob. We really appreciate it. And as an action, I'm just going to put in, because it's related to this, it's an action that.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Bob. I was speaking to myself. I mentioned also that for today's action, which is related to what you were just talking about at the border, I'm just going to put it in the chat for people to have before we close out, and then you don't have that link. This was something sent out, I believe, by Rox on our listserv, and I wanted to have people look at it. It's calling for the demilitarization of the border, a withdrawal of 3,600 active duty troops currently stationed at the southern border. So this goes along with what you were mentioning, Bob. These resources are tax dollars being spent on the southern border. So if you want to take a minute, it's an action for just sending your endorsement to have Biden administration withdraw these troops from the border. So we'll move on to Mary Jean. Thank you again, Bob, for everything you do. Take care. Mary Jean, if you have an update on the Tijuana-San Isidro border.
I have a couple updates. They've started very slowly letting people in. And at the Tijuana border, there are 25,000 migrants. And we're not sure how many have started the process. But Espacio Migrante is where Paulina is the director and is the one I know. And she has agreed to be on our immigration spotlight next week. And we'll have be able to tell us a lot more. And their website is Espacio, if you could put it up, Rosa, or someone, Migrante. And just, it's kind of like Loretto's one. You just got to follow the things, and it will give you a good idea about what's happening there. Because of some ruling, it has, Bob, you might know, but the Haitians in Cameroon, the people from Cameroon, aren't allowed to ask in the US for asylum because they came through another country to Mexico, and they should have asked asylum in Mexico. I don't know that, but she does. And the more I find out, and they're helping the Haitians and the Cameroons at their center because they are very, there's so much racism in Mexico that it's the same. Now, Rosa, I'm glad you put that up because the first time you go there, but do tap all those little things and you know, like info, support, apoyo. That's, yeah, who we are. That is great because it tells a lot more, and it's in English and Spanish, of course, because it's in Tijuana. But there are people here, just like Bob in Tucson, who are helping them. And tomorrow, but I don't have the link yet, they are having people who are requesting asylum, and they will be on a Zoom. So it's very complicated and moving very slowly. And that's
Great.
all I know right now.
Thank you, Mary Jean. That is a great preview too. Are you saying the next Immigration Spotlight, which I believe is March 5th?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Which is
Great.
just a week from today, which is not our normal. Usually it's 2 weeks, but it's a week from today.
Right. Thank you
And
for
I will
mentioning that.
get, who will put it on?
Well, why don't we
We'll-
LACC
we'll
folks
stay
stay on it?
afterwards.
Well,
and
okay, we'll do that.
take care of
Okay,
those
thank you.
details.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary Jean. Just wondering if there's any quick question for Bob or for Mary Jean?
Or if Maureen has anything to say
Oh,
about.
Maureen, yes. If there are no questions, Maureen?
I just wanted to say briefly about Colorado. There's a professor and a minister, Miguel de la Torre, in Denver, and he says about Central America, when you build a road to take out the resources, the people will follow that road out. And I thought that was always a good visual in my mind. In terms of the detention jail in Denver, a few weeks ago when I was ready to do a little report on here, there was only 300 people. And so what my information comes from talking to two gentlemen that are in jail there. And one is my pen pal and one is his friend who now I talk to as well. He comes on every time and it's filling up. He said it's just filling up. And I noticed talking to people at Casa de Paz, they are there every day and they've been there every day with a van in case someone gets released. And it was very sporadic, maybe 1 or 2 people a week. And now it's picking up again and they'll have 2 and 3 a day. So something has gone on since January in terms of that detention jail filling up, which does not make me happy. I'm
Froze.
I wasn't sure if she froze or I froze.
She froze.
Maureen. Okay, Maureen, if you can repeat your last comment once you come back on. You might not.
She might not.
Well, Sally, can
I've got 3 quick ones.
we move on to your announcements and see if she comes back on?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
First thing I'd like to say is that in a very recent email from NCR, there is a statement from the bishop in El Paso talking about how El Paso expects to begin to receive as a community people who are being processed through seeking asylum, you know, as they were doing a couple of years ago. So that might really heat up for our community members living in El Paso, and we need to keep that in mind. The second update I have is from someone who spoke to us last year regarding the situation at Stewart Detention Center, a man named PJ Edwards. He sent Molly Kameen the following update on what's going on at Stewart Detention Prison. Population is just over 600, and the capacity of this facility is 2,000 people. But so transfers are still occurring. ICE is now detaining both women and men at Stewart. There have been 4 COVID-related deaths at Stewart. He says higher than any other immigration detention prison nationally. And COVID cases per 100,000 Stewart County and neighboring areas in Georgia remain the highest in Georgia. And of course, many of the employees at Stewart live in these counties. And visitation and visitors in the immigration court are still on hold. That's an update from Stewart. I have an update also from the Burke's Family Detention Center in Pennsylvania. We had speakers from that organization with us in December. Real quickly, let's see. Since the beginning of this year, and with the support of the Loretto community, because we made a financial contribution to them, we've been able to facilitate the release of 22 children and their families from Burke's. And these are families who've been waiting upwards of 1.5 years for their freedom. So she's really excited about that. And now she says that the numbers have remained pretty low for the first several weeks of this year, but I'm sad to report that the number is growing here at Burke's. Maureen, similar to what you've reported to us. At the moment at Burke's, we have 8 families from Cuba, Russia, Brazil, Afghanistan, and Honduras, all seeking asylum. This includes a Cuban family who lost their asylum case through MPP and whose case we are seeking to reopen. They have been detained for over a month. Mom and 2 of the kids have asthma, and the ICE provider, quote, did not recommend the asthma medication that mom and the kids have been using since birth. As a result, mom's last asthma attack was more intense and prolonged, which sent her spiraling into a deep, dark place. She's extremely depressed. We would ask for a prayer for this family. Fortunately, there are no reports of COVID in the general population, but there have been reports of COVID in the staff as recently as December.
Thank you, Sally. That's sad news at the very end.
Yes.
Yes, Bob and Alicia.
Just real quick, I want to echo what Maureen said. The numbers of people at the shelters here in Tucson is growing. Phoenix shelter is full, and the prison population in Eloy jumped from 250 to 500. So it seems like it's happening in a number of different places. Yeah.
Alicia?
Yeah, I would. Is Maureen Flanagan still on?
Looks like we
I
lost
just
her.
let her in again and she's not appearing. I think she's having trouble.
I was just wondering because there are several detention centers, but there is a home where they do take care of families of detainees and sometimes are there to receive them when they're released. I have a little bit of money that someone sent me, and I was just wondering if I could send it to her, but I'll try to email her, you know, but so to me, that's a little action, but I do think that whatever we can do to facilitate the departure of people from those detention centers to their families, like what was happening 2 years ago before the COVID, and then also the Remain in Mexico policy came up. But, you know, here in Kentucky and probably all over the states, there were little groups that were helping those immigrants on buses going to a particular destination of either family or a sponsor. So maybe we can get back on something like that. I hope so.
Thank you for that suggestion. That's really great. So we've come to the end of our time. Want to thank everyone who joined us on this LECC Immigration Spotlight. I put the action again in the chat, and if if you want, you can also save the chat comments for the other links just by going to the chat and clicking on those three little dots on the top right. And it'll say save chat, and you can save whatever was in there so that if you didn't get all the links. Thank you
And-
again. I'm sorry.
And Rosa, yeah, I'm sorry, I did not get on to view the harvest, the Empire of Harvest. Could you send me that link so I could try to
I
get
will,
back on?
yes, I'll send that to you directly.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Rosa, before we dismiss folks, have we found out who is with us, who is identified as events on our screen?
Events?
Yeah.
Events, can you identify yourself?
This is Kathy Smith. I'm not events, but normally that's the one they play through the Mother
okay.
House closed circuit television system. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
So
okay,
they may have
thanks.
clicked
Oh,
it on
that's
for
good to
someone
know.
watch.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
now
Thanks, Kathy.
everyone in the Mother House.
We gave it.
Yeah, Mary Kay Brannon was on. I saw her. Yeah, so it may have been she who.
No, she's on. She's on with her own name.
Oh, okay, but then someone else.
That's good to know.
Sharon.
Thank you so much, all of you.
Wait, Sharon wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Excuse
Sharon.
me. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I want to learn. I'm only 4 hours from the border and I want to really be involved, but I need to catch up on all the information. And so thank you for allowing me here. I'll be back each time I can. And I'm hoping to plug in. We do take 2 carfuls of supplies down to El Paso to the, I forget the name of the home. But anyway, twice a month, we take lots of supplies, but I want to be more involved. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
We're glad.
Wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thanks.
I'll be in touch directly, Sharon, just to make sure you're on our listserv and you have
Great.
background information.
Thanks, Rosa.
Okay, so.
Thank-
Julie,
thank you
Julie,
all.
wait,
Thank you
Julie,
all.
Julie
Oh,
Gerber.
I'm not seeing. Okay, Julie, hi.
Yeah, I just say thank you so much for putting this out to the community, to all of us to jump in and be informed about what you guys are doing on your committee. And I'm really, I just was so grateful for the film. I mean, that was just really helpful. I mean, and then it was the El Salvador stuff that really hit me hard. And then there you had Martha come in. I mean, that was just, I thought, oh my gosh, that was really, anyway, thank you so much. And I know Loretta Earth Network is what I'm involved in, and we've talked about maybe coordinating, and I just love the idea of the dovetailing and the interconnection and the, how all these issues connect, our environmental and our, immigration, and I mean, it's just racism, it's just amazing, the intersection of it all. So anyway, thank you so much for all you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Ditto.
Thank you for that
Thanks, Julie.
comment.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Incidentally, Martha didn't mention it, but she was with Monsignor Romero. She was the right-hand person for the community for him. And she was there when he was killed. And she immediately had to go into hiding. And then she was exiled, which is part of the reason why she had to leave El Salvador. So she's a true revolutionary in that sense. And repeating the words of Monsignor Romero, we need to see the signs of the times. So on that note, thank you again. We end. We'll see you next week, same time on Zoom.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, LACC folks. I wonder if Maureen might try to join us again. Do you think?
Ask her.
I've just removed events, and you might want to stop recording, Sally.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's a good idea. And thank you for muting me.